From the All Indiana Podcast Network.
The All Indiana Podcast Network.
This is the News 8 Daily 8.
Now all the latest news.
Kylie Conway has all the news you need to know.
And more.
Please stand by.
Now, here's Wish TV's Kylie Conway.
Hi, this is Kylie Conway, and this is the News 8 Daily 8 for Monday, April 19th. Today will be a beautiful spring day with sunshine and highs in the mid-60s. Get out and enjoy it if you can, because this is followed by a cold stretch that may even include some snow this week. And this morning, we are putting faces and names to the 8 lives tragically lost in the mass shooting at FedEx. They were mothers, fathers, husbands, and wives, members of our community, a community that is now rallying behind those left behind.
And this loss, it's not just their loss, it's our loss too. Imagine what you would feel if it were your child.
This morning, we also know about the guns the suspected shooter used. Today, many people are questioning how someone who had a gun taken away could get another weapon. And calls are growing louder now to do something to end the violence. Even some of those touched by the tragedy are calling for change. Here's Congressman Andre Carson.
This is a continual fight. This is a fight that we're going to have at our city councils, in our general assemblies.
Police say 19-year-old Brandon Scott Hull used 2 rifles in the shooting. Police confirmed they had been in contact with Hull before. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives conducted a trace on the weapons the teenager had and learned he bought them in July and September of 2020. Hull was a former FedEx employee. He last worked for the company in 2020. The FBI said in a statement that Hull's mother had contacted police in March of 2020 and feared he would try to commit suicide by cop. This is when a person intends to provoke a lethal response from a public safety officer. The FBI statement said that Hull was placed on an immediate detention mental health temporary hold by IMPD. Police found a shotgun in his house and removed it. He was then interviewed by the FBI in April of 2020 after items found in his bedroom at the time of the temporary hold. The FBI said no racially motivated violent extremism ideology or criminal violation was found. They also did not return the shotgun to him. Both IMPD and the FBI have made it clear that the motive is still under investigation. News 8's Hannah Mordeau spoke to a local IU professor about Indiana's red flag law. That professor told her that the law has too many loopholes. As Hannah reports, he says it helps take a gun away from someone who is an imminent risk to themselves or others, but doesn't necessarily stop them from buying another gun.
With Indiana's law, it's basically a gun removal law. It doesn't automatically stop them from buying other guns later.
Paul Humke is a professor at the IU O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs and used to work for the Brady Center to prevent gun violence. He says that Indiana was one of the first states to implement red flag laws, but they don't go far enough.
We have a law that says the police can come in and take existing guns away, but until there is a court order that says he's dangerous, he can go out and buy guns. And unless that court order that he's dangerous is sent to the background check system, then nobody's going to know that he's dangerous, and they're allowed to sell him the guns.
In the case of 19-year-old Brandon Scott Hull, the FBI says his mother had contacted them in March of 2020 and feared he would try to commit suicide by cop. Then a shotgun was seized at his residence and never returned. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives say Hull used 2 assault rifles in the FedEx shooting that he bought legally in July and September of 2020. According to Indiana red flag laws, authorities have 2 weeks after seizing someone's weapons to argue in court that the person should not have a gun. But officials have not said whether a judge made a ruling in Hull's March 2020 case.
If there was a hearing, the judge at that hearing could have ordered, made this shooter a prohibited purchaser, which would have meant that he would not have legally been able to buy any more guns. But we don't know whether there was a court hearing. If there was a court hearing, we don't know whether there was a finding that he should be a prohibited purchaser. Or if there had been a court hearing and a finding that he should be a prohibited purchaser, we don't know whether that record was ever set to the background check system.
Humke says the federal government can't force states to send the prohibited purchaser record to the National Instant Background Check System, and often it doesn't get done. Plus, after a year, the court orders expire. So
If your name's not in the background check system as being a felon or being found dangerously mentally ill, you can buy any gun you want and as many guns as you want. Something's wrong with that system.
Again, that was Hannah Mordeau reporting there. Helmke tells her that Indiana's red flag law leaves the burden on the state to prove a person is still a danger 180 days after their firearms have been removed. And often it defaults to people simply getting their weapons back. In this case, if every step was taken within our laws, Helmke says that the shooter still likely would have been able to legally obtain a weapon by the time of this mass shooting. And this morning, we are learning more about the 8 people killed. One is a former IPS student. Carly Smith was only 19 years old. She's been described as someone who would try to make you smile on a bad day. Carly's brother, Brandon Smith, tells News 8 that she was a bubbly person, had an outgoing personality. IPS put out a statement about Carly as well. It read in part, administrators, teachers, and classmates remember Carly for her sense of humor that often generated smiles and laughter. Carly was a bright light wherever she went. She will be dearly missed by all throughout IPS who knew and loved her. Another victim is Matthew Alexander, 32 years old. He was honored over the weekend during a baseball game at Avon High School. The athletic department tweeted out a photo. Alexander's family and many of his teammates were there Saturday. And the Beech Grove community is remembering the victims. Mayor Dennis Buckley hosted a vigil on the steps of Town Hall yesterday afternoon. One of the victims, Samaria Blackwell, was homeschooled in Beech Grove. Buckley says he knows her family and calls Blackwell a caring person.
She is one of our bright young citizens who has been called home.
And 4 other of the victims in Thursday's mass shooting were part of Indiana's Sikh community. The community is part of the larger Indian American population. Indian Americans are the second largest immigrant group in the state. News 8's Nina Criscolo spoke to the founder and CEO of Dia TV about Indiana's Sikh community.
I think part of what the objective is at large that these community members want to do, and certainly from our standpoint as a TV channel, is we want to make sure that the broader American community knows that, hey, these are wonderful people. They have ancient traditions that go back hundreds, thousands of years, and they want to be part of the American experience. And hopefully, this is obviously a heartbreaking way to get to know some people in the Indianapolis community, but hopefully this will bring everyone closer together, and so you can have a broader shared experience.
Dia TV provides programming with the Indian American and South Asian viewing communities in mind. It can be seen on Wish TV subchannel 8.4, actually. You can watch the full interview of Ravi Kapoor on wishtv.com under the local tab. Just click on Dia TV founder and CEO talks about Indian Americans, Sikhs in Indiana. And John Weiser was the oldest of the victims. He'd been working as a bag handler at FedEx for 4 years. We'd actually spoken to his wife Friday before she found out that he was among those killed. She told us the two were going to celebrate 50 years of marriage later this year. And 19-year-old Samaria Blackwell mentioned her. She worked at FedEx, but she was also a local lifeguard. Indy Park shared a statement that reads, "We are saddened to learn of her death and remain grateful for her service at Garfield and Bethel Parks and most recently, Indy Island Aquatic Center. She kept her colleagues laughing and easily made friends across the department." And there is talk about gun reform among more than politicians. News 8 spoke with a brother of one of the victims who was at the Memorial Monument Circle. We're talking about Brandon Smith, Carly Smith's brother. He says he'll never get to see his sister Carly again. And while grieving, he says we need stronger gun control laws.
People could stop bickering and get together on some gun reform. Nobody's trying to take anybody's guns. It's like a seatbelt for a car. When nobody's trying to stop you from driving a car, just put a seatbelt on.
And while many of the families of the victims have different backgrounds and beliefs, they share the same pain and, for many, the same end goal of stopping violence like this from happening again. Okay, so just a minute ago here in the podcast, we talked about the red flag laws, talked with a professor who pointed out the loopholes that it contains as far as people who have had their weapons taken away, still having the ability to go out and buy guns legally. So these victims, their friends and families are now calling on local, state, and federal leaders to take action and get these loopholes closed.
No citizen of this nation should leave for their place of work, worship, or school in the fear of losing their lives. A high amount of casualties have been a result of gun violence not only this year, but many years before. But you want to tell me what action has been taken? Does anyone have an answer for that?
As far as mass shootings and the latest statistics, the United States has seen 45 in what chalks up to be about a month since March 16th. That's according to the Gun Violence Archive. So far this year, the archive reports more than 150 shootings where 4 or more people were shot. Experts warn this could create desensitization among Americans.
The body naturally responds from the horror and the shock to try to protect ourselves by increasingly becoming numb.
Just this weekend, 3 people were killed and 2 others hurt in a shooting at a tavern in Wisconsin. NASCAR driver Denny Hamlin is paying tribute to the 8 lives lost. Several decals were added to his number 11 FedEx car for Sunday's race at Richmond Raceway in Virginia. That included adding the hashtag FedEx Strong on the back of the car and a black ribbon with the word Indy. Hamlin also wore a hat that listed each of the victims' names. And several fundraisers are now active for the surviving victims and family members of those killed. One of the largest is on GoFundMe from the National Compassion Fund. The fund helps coordinate relief after high-profile tragedies. So far this morning, its effort in the FedEx shooting has raised more than $1 million. We reached out to GoFundMe for tips to make sure that you are giving to a trustworthy fundraiser. One key is to see exactly how the organizer is connected to the recipient. If you have questions, GoFundMe says to reach out to the organizer directly and be cautious if they cannot say specifically how the money will be used or the purpose of the fundraiser. And police in Texas are searching for a former sheriff's deputy who they say is responsible for a triple homicide in Austin. Investigators say Stephen Broderick shot and killed 3 people early Sunday morning. And this morning, police are warning that Broderick is believed to be armed and dangerous. Austin police say there was a child there at the scene as well of the shooting, but is safe now. Minneapolis and cities across the country are preparing for possible protests ahead of closing arguments today in the Derek Chauvin trial. Video from the area has some barbed wire and fencing throughout, as well as National Guard troops standing by. Omar Jimenez has more on the weeks of testimony the jurors heard.
The stage is now set for the long-awaited closing arguments in the trial of Derek Chauvin and the longer-awaited jury deliberations. Notably, jurors didn't ever hear testimony from Derek Chauvin, who, until Thursday, only spoke through the past in the form of body camera video presented.
Had to hold the guy down. He was going crazy. Wouldn't go in, trying to feel the moment. Wouldn't go in the back of the squad.
But confirmed in court, jurors wouldn't hear testimony from him in this trial.
I will invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege today.
Outside of Chauvin's decision, a lot of court centered on a familiar face, the return of pulmonologist Dr. Martin Tobin, who prosecutors used as a rebuttal witness to testimony that carbon monoxide could have played a role in George Floyd's death, pointing to a blood oxygen saturation report that showed George Floyd's was at 98% when he died.
Does that tell us anything whatsoever about what the carbon monoxide content could have been at a maximum?
Yes, it does. If the hemoglobin is saturated at 98%, it tells you all there was for everything else is 2%, and so the maximum amount of carbon monoxide would be 2%.
Tobin was among the over 40 witnesses that were called total in this trial, from those steps away from George Floyd on May 25th, 2020.
Mr. McGunn, do you need a minute?
I feel helpless.
To law enforcement on the use of force that day.
Was this a trained Minneapolis Police Department defensive tactics technique?
It is not. I felt that Derek Chauvin was justified, was acting with objective reasonableness.
And doctors on the cause of death.
There's no evidence to suggest he would have died that night, except for the interactions with law enforcement.
Again, that was Omar Jimenez reporting. And starting this morning, every state now offers COVID-19 vaccinations to anyone 16 or older. The final states to make the switch begin today. Brett Conway looks at the next goal for health leaders, convincing more people to get the shot.
By no later than April 19th.
Today's the day. Every American 16 years and older is eligible to get a COVID-19 vaccine.
It's your turn now.
As of Sunday, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says half of U.S. adults have had at least one dose, a big step in the race between vaccines and variants.
That's the reason why you want to get our population vaccinated.
But demand is dropping in a number of states. A recent poll from Monmouth University shows about 1 in 5 adults say they're not willing to get vaccinated. The divide is mostly along party lines, with 43% of Republicans who want to avoid the vaccine, 22% of independents, and 5% of Democrats. The reasons vary, from a push to maintain personal freedoms.
This is a public health issue. It's not a civil liberties issue.
To distrust because of past mistreatment of minorities by health professionals, difficulty accessing the shots, not liking needles, or a lack of long-term safety data.
These vaccines are exceedingly safe. They're, I believe, safer than most therapies and vaccines that we have developed in the past.
Health experts say whatever the reason, it's all the more reason to keep talking.
Having that conversation in a way that doesn't make them feel judged or ashamed by having any kind of concerns or hesitations, and that allows them to at least feel a bit more comfortable with it.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
And the U.S. could resume use of the Johnson & Johnson shot this week. Dr. Anthony Fauci says the CDC should make a decision by Friday. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine had been used at mass vaccination sites in Indiana, including at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The state health department switched to Moderna last week after reports of blood clots from 6 women who received the J&J shot. Fauci believes the single-dose vaccine will make a return.
I do think we will get it back in some manner or form. But what I'm sure, I hope, that we don't see anything extended beyond Friday. We need to get Friday some decision one way or the other.
Fauci says he doubts the CDC would just cancel the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And former President George W. Bush says it is time for both parties to work on immigration reform. He wrote his stance in an op-ed for the Washington Post. Bush says lawmakers should embrace DACA, the program that helps provide citizenship for immigrants brought to the United States as children. He also suggests more resources go into making the border more secure. He warns, in his words, we cannot rely on enforcement alone to prevent the untenable and so often heartbreaking scenes that come with large-scale migration. Bush writes that it is time for Congress to revamp the nation's asylum system. And now to business headlines. The coronavirus pandemic is hitting recent college graduates hard as they struggle to lock down a job even a year after graduating. A Monster survey says about 45% of these college grads from 2020 are still looking for a job. The class of 2021 is also likely to face similar job hunting woes. Impending graduates are expecting to spend 5 months searching for the right job. Ookla's speed test platform placed T-Mobile at the top of the network pack in terms of overall speed. In its first quarter report for 2021, speed test shows T-Mobile's performance outpaced rivals AT&T and Verizon. AT&T, not T-Mobile, was on top in the fourth quarter of 2020. Amazon is building a new furniture service that would compete with Wayfair and alleviate customer pain points of having to DIY. Bloomberg's reporting this. The e-commerce giant is reportedly launching a service that would have workers deliver and build furniture, positioning it against retailers in the home improvement space, such as Lowe's, Home Depot, and online home goods store Wayfair, which charges extra for a building fee. Newly licensed technologies developed at Purdue University could help the U.S. be more competitive in rare earth metals by using coal ash. Indiana has more coal ash than any other state. Rare earth elements are a set of 17 metallic elements that are needed to make cell phones, computer monitors, fiber optics, lasers, medical imaging, and many other uses. Right now, China dominates the rare earth market. TesLab, a free app that's like a Fitbit for a Tesla vehicle, pushed out a new feature this week that shows the energy mix, breaking down the exact types and percentages of fossil fuels and renewable energy coming from charging locations. This has been your News 8 Daily 8 for Wish TV. I'm Kylie Conway. Online at wishtv.com and follow us on Facebook when you search Wish TV.
Check out more podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. allindianapodcastnetwork.com.